Hello everybody, welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Oana.
So today we're going to talk about 2022 and our prediction for what home prices are going to do.
Right.
Okay, so I made a video at the beginning of last year. Now this was just a me video.
Okay.
It was, and the title of it was Why the Housing Market Will Not Crash. I'm going to put a link to it right up here. So you can go click on that and watch that whole video. The reason I made that video is because at the beginning of the year when I was, looking at what's going on in the real estate market, I kept seeing these YouTube videos that were all saying the market was going to crash. And they were looking at two things. Prices went up, right? The prices were going up.
Right.
And then at the time, there was a relatively high number of homes in default, loans in default. Okay? All right. So we're going to talk about this. This is what we're going to do in the video. We're going to tell everybody all the things that make up the price of a home.
Okay.
Meaning what economic factors. And then at the end of the video, we're going to give our predictions.
Okay.
Based on what we think the market's going to do.
Okay. So two things before we start. First of all, if Todd does not put that link up there for the other video, call him to task, leave him a comment.
It'll be there.
Second, hit the notification bell, like the video, subscribe, so that you can get more of these videos. Now, let's get started.
This is not financial advice. This is our opinion.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So let's start with the last collapse that happened, 2005, 6, 7. Home prices went up in 4 and 5, peaked in 6, started crashing in 7, crashed for a couple years. So what are some factors? Like, why did that happen? Because we're going to compare that to this, and probably you'll find out that there's no comparison. So what were some things that happened back then?
Right. So back then, we used to joke that you did not need to fog up a mirror to get a loan. It was helpful, but not necessary.
Okay.
Because they had all these loan products out there that were called stated income, where you basically said, hey, I make this much money, whether you made that much money or not. That was debatable. So that was one of the issues. Another issue was that there were people in the marketplace purchasing all these homes, and they were purchasing homes and neither living in them nor renting them out.
Okay.
They were purchasing them because homes were appreciating at such a rapid rate that they were looking to flip them. Something else that was happening is people were purchasing homes without very much money down, either little or no money down. And then on top of that, there were all these 125% or over 100% loan products out there. So again, people were entering into the home purchase situation and they were already upside down. So there were all these things going on that conspired, if you will, to make up this perfect storm where homes were simply not purchased for what they were really worth because of all these different things. Now, to contrast that with right now, none of that's happening now.
None of it. It's not happening. So let's talk about a couple of those things. So there's this thing in economics, in economic theory, called Ceteris Paribus. And it is an economic term that means all other things being held equal. So when you make comparisons, you have to hold everything equal and only look at how two things change. So here we're only looking at how easy it is to get a loan.
Right.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, getting a loan back then was basically, if 10 was easy and 1 was hard, it was probably like a 10.
Or more, because it was almost impossible to not get a loan back then.
Yeah, so there was this is true story. Met a person, she was a cocktail waitress. She made about $6,000 a month, single, which is good money. She had five investment properties. And she had a friend who was a lender, was getting her these crazy loans, and she had bought the houses because the home prices were going up, and they were all new construction. So she would go in, say, I'm going to buy the house, get it, and then when it closed, flip it, because it took 6 to 8 months, and by then the market had gone up 50 or 60 grand, put the money in your pocket, right?
Right.
And that, of course, so that that's not happening right now. Like, no. You can't just, like, someone just can't go out and buy 5 houses with a $60,000, $70,000 a year income.
No, absolutely not. So the threshold to secure a loan is much higher, and everybody's requiring down payment.
Oh yeah.
The 125% or over 100% loan to value is not happening. Those products are simply not out there.
They're gone. They've been gone for a decade.
Right. New homes are hard to come by. It's not like you can walk into 5 new home builders and purchase 5 homes. It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
It's gotten much harder to purchase a new construction property.
Okay, let's talk about that then real quick. So this built up over 2 years. So what happened was in 2004, the market started taking off a little bit.
Right.
And new home builders saw an opportunity. The opportunity was the market's going up, but they could build the home for the same amount of money. They didn't, meaning what it cost to build a house didn't change. What was going up was what they could sell it for. So the home builders went all in. They bought up a bunch of land. They hired a ton of people. They got a bunch of product, right? And they went out and fed this thing by building like new construction like crazy, and it sort of fed the ability for people to do this, right? Because they were trying to capture this profit. Okay, so let's talk about now with new home builders and what that looks like.
Right. So new home builders are in a totally different situation now. So number one, there's scarcity of land here in Las Vegas. So the caveat here is that we're speaking about two similar things. We're talking about what's going on kind of at large, but primarily we are focused on here in Las Vegas. So here in Las Vegas, we are very much landlocked, and what I mean by that is that we simply don't have enough land on which to build because most of the land around us is owned by the federal government and they have not put it up for sale. So the builders don't have enough land on which to build. The builders are having a hard time getting raw materials. The builders are having a hard time getting labor. So let me give you an example on the labor portion. So they used to have all these crews that worked for the builder, or they had these subcontractors that primarily worked for the builder and that sort of thing. That's not happening. They're using a lot of labor that is going from builder to builder because there is a shortage of labor. So what's happening is, let's say for example, you've got an electrician. So the electrician comes out and maybe he'll do 3 or 4 houses for one builder today. If something is missed on a house or if something is done wrong, that electrician is not coming back tomorrow. That electrician is not scheduled to come back to that job site for maybe another week or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So that delays and places really difficulties on getting that home to progress. Because we do have this labor shortage, and I pick on electricians because it's an easy trade to pick on, but that happens with plumbers, it happens with all kinds of other trades as well, so it's not just electricians. So builders are having a hard time between the land, the raw materials, which we all know that at this point a piece of plywood is worth gold. There's a supply chain problem. Right. And then the labor. So it is very different than it was back then, where you had ample labor, you had ample materials. We had so much labor, as a matter of fact, at the time, that when everything went bust, Las Vegas had actually a decline in population for the first time. And the reason we had a decline in population was not necessarily because people moved out en masse and we didn't have people coming in. We still had people coming in, but the people that left en masse were actually people in the construction industry.
They bailed.
Right. So there were so many back then. So labor was plentiful back then, as opposed to now, where we do not have an abundance of labor.
Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is demand, because it's much different. Okay, so the first thing is that the loans, much easier to get a loan. Okay, not so much today.
Right.
Okay. All right. The second thing was builders were building like crazy because they believed they were making a ton of money, but they really aren't doing that right now. They're building not even to meet demand, right? Okay.
Right. Not to say that builders are not making a lot of money right now, because they are making money hand over fist. Please don't misunderstand that.
No, we're not talking about that. So the next thing is demand. Okay, so there wasn't, like, for the amount of building that was happening, there weren't that many people moving to Vegas, right?
Right.
Okay, so we have, I'll represent it this way, with this much building, with this many people moving, right?
So we had entire communities back then that were basically purchased by speculators. So when these communities closed escrow, it was not uncommon to only have a few people on each street actually living in a property and the rest of homes being vacant. That was not uncommon.
There was a high rise.
Yes.
Part of Panorama Towers. It was Tower 3. It had 4 or 5 people living in the whole building, and they couldn't operate the building for just 4 or 5 people. So they took the people and said, we're taking your units, we're giving you units in a different building. They gave them a different unit completely. Said, go in the other building, we're gonna shut the whole building down. Okay. Back today, we have the opposite problem. Okay, we have home builders building this many homes, but we have this many people coming because they're coming from California. Like, people have had it. I mean, they're coming from everywhere that they normally come from, but they're also coming from California. So we have more demand.
Yes.
We have less of predatory or very easily lending. We have home builders who are certainly not overbuilding. If anything, they're underbuilding. And those 3 things together, if you look at them economically, all add up to prices to rise, right?
Yes.
So, okay, now, so when we look at next year, we're going to look at leading indicators, because that's really all we have, because none of us really know. Like, nobody knows.
Okay, I want to get a crystal ball for the next video.
Crystal ball. We're going to get a crystal ball. We're going to put it right here. We're going to look into it. We're going to tell you exactly, right?
But you're wearing the Karnak hat.
Karnak hat.
Okay.
Okay. The 2 biggest things that are leading indicators that I always, in every market update I've done since, like, I think 2009, I started doing these things, right? And so 12, 13 years ago. Anyway, one is inventory. Okay. Inventory in 2006 got up to 26,000 homes on the market. 26,000 homes. Now, to put it in perspective, right now, 1,700. 1,700, it's less than a tenth. 2,600 would be a tenth. It's less than, it's like 0.6. It's like a lot less. Like, it's 6%, 7%. Right. It's like a lot less.
And remember, our population is higher now than it was then.
Yeah. Population is a lot higher. Okay. That's the first thing, is the number of homes on the market. Because until that gets big, there's no bubble to pop. Like, the people make a mistake, because all the average person does is look at home prices. They just go, well, home prices went up and it collapsed, and home prices are going up now, so it's going to collapse, right? And that's not a good way to look at it, because it doesn't work that way. Okay. So I give you a perfect example. If you had put $10,000 into Apple in 1980, it would be worth $232 million today. Now, if you just look at price, Apple's a bubble. It's going to collapse, and you should go short it right now, right? So you just can't look at price, okay? The other thing you have to look at is pre-foreclosure activity, because really that's the only thing right now. It's the only thing that could cause inventory to rise. Because when you look at market forces, it's pretty clear inventory's been declining. It went from like 5,000 to 4,000, and then it went into the 3,000s, and now it's below 2,000. This happened over 3 years, okay, where it's consistently very low. Pre-foreclosure activity, back in the day, 2007, 8, 6, 300 notice of defaults a day, okay? We have less than that every month, and we're having roughly 1 or 2 trustee sales 5 days of the week. So we're getting maybe 15, 20 trustee sales a month out of 400,000 residential units, right? Low inventory, forward-looking, literally no foreclosure activity. And why don't we have why don't we have foreclosure? Because I read, a year ago, there's all these people in default, but we really don't have the foreclosure activity.
Right. We don't have foreclosure activity because everyone has equity. Even if they have not been making their mortgage payments, their homes have been appreciating at a faster rate than what they're owing on the house. The other thing is, like we talked at the beginning, everybody has money into their property to begin with because it took a down payment for them to get into the property. They didn't get into the property with negative equity. And then lastly, it's become very difficult, if not impossible, to get home equity loans. So again, that works toward leaving equity in the home. So if the homes have equity, then people can sell them. They're not short sales out there. There are not bank-owned homes out there because people have equity in their homes and they are able to sell the house.
Okay. That's literally the exact answer. Yes,
Yay.
You can have a bunch of people in behind on their mortgage. But if you bought your house at $270 and it's worth $400,000 and you owe $10,000, you're not going to get, like, why would you get foreclosed? You just call up a real estate agent and say, hey, we're behind on our payments and, you know, we're what do I have to do? And they said, well, either you're a home equity line of credit, pay off your loan, or pay off what you're late, or you sell the house. Mm-hmm. And if you sell the house, you're going to put $100,000 in your pocket and you're going to pay off your loan. So if we look back to 2006, 7, the problem was no one had equity, meaning they had bought their home with 100% loan to value. It was still worth what they paid, what the loan was. And so they were all putting them on the market, trying to get out of the house, but they couldn't get out of the house. Matter of fact, funny story, I distinctly remember a month when I went on 10 listing appointments, and 7 of them I refused to take. One of them, the house was worth $310. He owed $310, and basically what he said to me was, I have to list it for at least $325 or $330, or I can't pay the commissions and I won't be able to sell the house. I'm not coming out of pocket. And I just said, there's like 10 houses in your neighborhood, all listed for $310. Like it's a waste of my time to even do the paperwork. I'm going to walk out the door. Like, we either list it for $310 or we don't do it. Like, it's not going to happen. And he said, no, it needs to be. And I'm sure he got foreclosed. 100% sure he got foreclosed.
So I took a lot of those listings, and what happened was I would negotiate the transaction with the seller, with the buyer, and with the seller's lender. And what was happening at the time was, this was at the very beginning, is that the sellers were having to basically take out a personal loan from their mortgage company to pay any shortfall. So to your point, if the house is worth $310, we sell it for $310, the fees are $25,000. And so then what happens is the seller then would have to sign a promissory note for that $25,000, which they would have to pay back. This was before we could do short sales where basically the bank would let the seller off the hook. Because for a long time, the sellers were not let off the hook. They did have these promissory notes. Now these notes were not guaranteed by anything, so they were kind of like a credit card. So some people would pay them, some people wouldn't pay them, but that was something after the fact that was beyond the scope of what I was doing. But I saw a lot of that.
All right. So all these things we've been talking about that created that perfect storm versus today, the only similarity is that prices have gone up quite a bit.
Right.
That's the only similarity.
Right.
But they went up for different reasons. All the reasons they went up were backed by actual demand, actual scarcity, and none of the downside risks. Lack of equity, high number of defaults, nothing is, we had thousands, tens of thousands of vacant homes. I think at the peak of the market back then, it was based on NV Energy, because they could track how many homes you had power on or not on or whatever. But they estimated there were 55,000 vacant homes. It was like over 1/8 of all the homes in the valley. And it was mostly new homes. There were new home subdivisions. You would drive through, there'd be no cars because people bought them, but they never moved in. Okay, so the only thing that's the same is prices have gone up. Yes. But this time it's like it's backed by something, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna do my prediction first. Okay. And then you can do your prediction. Okay. And then we'll do is, and you have to subscribe and all that stuff, or you're not going to find out next year if we were right. I think last year I said 15 was my guess, and I think I was well under. I said 15 last year. Okay.
15 what?
Last year I said about 15% prices go up, and I think they went up more than 15. I think they went up 17 or 23. Rents have gone up too. That's another thing that rents back then were starting to decline a little bit, and now they're going up like crazy. So That's another thing helping prices, because investors are seeing high rents and they're seeing the ability to raise rents. Okay. I believe inflation is going to be about 5% next year.
Okay.
I think at a minimum, home prices are going to go up at a minimum 5% more than inflation. I think they're going to beat inflation by 5%. So I'm going to say at the low end, home prices will go up 10%. And at the high end, they're going to go up 15%.
Okay.
If I had to guess, if you were to tell me right now that it wasn't between 10 and 15, okay, 10 on the low end, 15 on the high end. If you were to say you missed it, it was wrong, then if I had to go 50-50, I'd say higher, right? So I'm biased higher. But I think that home prices in 2020 go up in Vegas, go up at least 10%, if not 15%. It's going to be in there somewhere. And then, everything I'm seeing right now that points that there's still all these price pressures and nothing bad. All the bad stuff that happened back then, there's I don't see any of it happening right now, except for prices going up, which is not a bad thing. It's not like a negative thing.
Right.
Okay. So what does your crystal ball say?
Okay, so my crystal ball says, look, real estate is hyper local. So the way I look at it is I look at it more specifically, like per zip code. And I think here in the Las Vegas Valley, I think we're going to have appreciation, depending on the zip code that you're in, anywhere between probably 6 and 18%. So, depending on where you are, I think you're going to be somewhere in there. And I know that's not quite what you had in mind, but that's the way my brain works.
Right.
And I think what's going to be different this time around is I think you're still going to see a higher appreciation than normal on the high end, which we don't normally see. We usually see lower appreciation on the high end, but I think you're going to see, higher than normal appreciation on the high end because we do have this vast influx of people. I know we've always had an influx of people from California and from other places, but I think we're still going to be benefiting from this vast influx of people. And these are going to be people who have higher incomes and can afford more expensive homes. I think you're going to see stable neighborhoods, and what I mean by that is neighborhoods that don't have a lot of turnover. That means that they don't have a lot of homes that they sell. And I think those neighborhoods are probably going to skew lower because there's not much going on. But I think neighborhoods that are seeing a lot of home sales, I think those are going to be leapfrogging one on top of the other, and I think that's going to be a catalyst for a higher appreciation over the course of the year than neighborhoods that are very stable. Okay,
so I'm going to put this in some numbers. If you look at my 10 to 15 and one is 6 to 18, you get about 13% in there somewhere, right? On a $400,000 house, that's roughly, in a year it'll be worth about $452. That's about 13% roughly. Right. Okay, so that's not bad.
No. So
that's a median home. You're talking about a median home going up $50,000 in a year.
Right. So to kind of give you an idea, I put a house on the market this past week. I put it on the market for $400,000. $400,000. Okay. I have 4 offers, sight unseen, so they have not seen the house.
Yep.
And my offers, no offer is at list price or below. They're all over list, and the high one is almost 10% over list.
And we did not lowball this listing.
No.
As a matter of fact, we took the last sale and added $10,000.
Yep.
Like we said, let's add $10,000 and put it right, because the last sale was $390. Let's add $10,000 and put it at $400. It's a nice round number. It's going to get a lot of people looking at it because it's going to get $350 to $400, $400 to $450. Okay. And I was right, right? Because obviously a lot of people saw it because we got bombarded, and it's no showing. Showings don't happen till after New Year's, but it's not even actually on the market. It's incoming soon, right? It's incoming soon. It's not even listed like on the market. It's just incoming soon status, and we're already getting offers on it.
Yes.
So it's likely to sell for almost, potentially,
it's likely to sell well over 420, maybe even over 430.
Yeah. That I consider that a leading indicator.
Yes.
There's a lot of money chasing a lot less real estate.
Right.
You have in 2021 the equity markets hit all-time highs.
Right.
The crypto markets hit all-time highs. Inflation probably is an all-time high. There was more money printed than ever before, even than during years where we were at war. And that money has to go somewhere.
Well, the other thing is that's different. That was not happening back in 2005, 6, 7, 8, and so on, is that we have institutional buyers. So now we have institutional buyers. I mean, I actually have an offer from someone like that, or an institutional buyer. And when I spoke with the agent, he told me that they have several billion with a B to spend on purchasing homes. Now, when you're buying homes and you have several billion with a B to purchase single family homes, how price sensitive do you think you're going to be? Probably not.
This is okay, keep this in mind. The people who work that manage assets at those companies get paid to acquire properties. They are not going to live in the house. They're not going to worried if they overpay or anything. They get bonused and paid strictly based on getting these things done. So they don't want to goof off with not getting a bunch of homes trying to save the company they work for, the hedge fund or whatever, a couple grand on a home sale. They're trying to acquire these properties because this cash that is sitting there is being inflated away. I mean, if you have billions of dollars and inflation is, I think it was 6% last month, monthly inflation.
Yeah.
It's disappearing. It's disappearing. You need to put it into an asset like now. So, so just paying whatever is not a bad thing.
Right.
And we're going to see this money continue to flow, and it's not really propping up. It's making because remember, they're doing this with cash.
Right. So the thing is that they are purchasing these properties with cash, and that is supporting home values. That means that these are homes that are not going to get foreclosed on. Okay, so these are not loans that are going to go bad. That's not going to happen. So all of this is just providing this bedrock of support for home values.
Here's the other thing too. There's this thing called the mark-to-market rule. And what's interesting is when they buy the house, unlike buying a mutual fund or stocks or whatever, that value is locked in. Even if home values fall, they don't care. On their books, it still shows the value of what they paid is a real asset. So there's no incentive for them to sell it if they think the market's going to drop. It's actually the worst thing they would do. So what's kind of cool is they're going to buy these homes and probably not sell them. Like they're not going to sell them until they can realize a profit.
Right. And because they're purchasing so many homes, they are going to meter out the rotation of these properties, because they will be so invested in the market that they certainly don't want to dump a whole bunch of homes on the market and ruin their own sales. That doesn't make any sense. So you've got these big institutional investors that, like I said, are providing a bedrock for values in multiple ways, which is really good for homeowners at large. I realize that if you're trying to purchase a home and you're competing against somebody who's paying cash and happens to be a hedge fund or institutional buyer, that's not necessarily who you want to compete against. But at the end of the day, there is a certain amount of benefit for having these players in the market.
If you think we are wrong and you own a house in Las Vegas, then you should list it and sell it now.
Yep.
Because if you think their home prices are going to collapse and the bubbles are going to burst, give us a call. We will come out there. We will take pictures of your house. We'll get it on the market. We'll get you a smoking offer, most likely. Multiple offers get you more money than we probably thought we could get in the first place. And you'll walk away with a ton of cash. You won't have to worry about risk in the real estate market. And then good luck with your cash. I don't know what you're going to do with it. But
we'll help you out with your cash. We'll go ahead and we'll split it up, and we'll have you purchase another house and we'll have you purchase an investment house.
Okay.
We will totally help you out.
I guessed last year and I was actually under. But
Okay.
I think I'm hoping this year I'm not under. I hope it's right where I said it's gonna be 10 to 15%. But that's pretty reasonable for your $400,000 house to be worth, $450
Okay.
that you just bought.
Okay, so my bet is that there's still going to be at least one zip code out there that's going to hit 18%.
Okay, that doesn't surprise. It wouldn't surprise me. There's a lot of zip codes in Las Vegas,
Yes.
like 40 of them or something.
Yes.
All right. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share the video with your friends.
We'll see you on the next video.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.